Revenge films.
My husband's parents lived in the countryside. It was originally a small farming village, but now it has become a town with an increased population. His parents run a farm. Their houses and farms seem to be switched between newly built homes and apartments. After my husband, their eldest son, joined their farm business, I quit my job and started living on the farm. I encountered many difficulties as a new farmer, but I did my best thanks to my husband's support. After a while, I started to feel sick and discovered I was pregnant. It was our first child, so my husband was over the moon. I thought a bigger hospital would be better than the town clinic, so I went to the bigger hospital that was about 20 to 30 minutes away by car. However, 1 week before my due date, I suddenly had severe abdominal pain. Oh, what's happening? I was dizzy and having squeezing pain, and I couldn't drive to the bigger hospital. Because it was so urgent, I called the town doctor and explained my situation. My stomach suddenly... A female doctor who wasn't my family doctor replied over the phone, "I just finished calls. I'll be right over." She came shortly after. After doing checks on my stomach, she said, "We need to get you to the hospital right now." She brought me to the hospital and told me to be on bed rest. My baby and I were safe thanks to the doctor. I also felt ashamed for having a prejudice against my town clinic. The female doctor assigned a nurse to look after my 2-year-old daughter while I did checkups. The nurses at the town clinic were all friendly. They said,
"Don't worry, you're in good hands."
"Thank you so much." "You'll be on bed rest until you give birth to a healthy baby, all right?" I was very grateful, but something shocking happened right after. My in-laws came to the hospital and got angry immediately when they saw me on the hospital bed.
In the old days, we used to cut the umbilical cord with a sickle and get over with it quickly. Jeez, city girls can't even give birth to a child without hassle. Hurry up and come help with the work once you're done. If it doesn't work out this time, just make another one.
My husband had no say in front of his parents, so he just stayed quiet and held our daughter close. I was so overwhelmed by farm life and my in-laws that I thought, "Is that so?" As if I was brainwashed. So I got up to leave the hospital even though my stomach was still hurting. The doctor's eyes widened when she saw me getting up from the bed. "What are you guys thinking?" She shouted so loudly her voice echoed in the room. Everyone was surprised by her sudden shout. My mother-in-law probably had never been yelled at by a woman, so they didn't know how to react, but the doctor continued. "I can't believe you take life so lightly. What kind of cold-blooded person are you? No matter how good of a wife or daughter-in-law she is, a mother will always choose their child's life over other things. Do you understand?" Then she turned to my husband, who was already intimidated. "You have such a lovely daughter who needs your protection, but you can't even protect an unborn child? What kind of father are you?" The doctor's words seemed to have made my husband realize how absurd his parents were, so he said,
I'm so sorry, Sally. Dad, Mom, get out!
Finally, my in-laws gave in to my husband and the doctor's fierce words and left the hospital. After being hospitalized at the town clinic for 2 days, I was transferred to my usual hospital. I refused my in-laws' visitation. The doctors and nurses at the bigger hospital also praised the town clinic doctor.
"You have nothing to worry about if she's on your side. She's a kind, genuine person." "Don't worry about your in-laws. Leave it to me."
Everyone at the hospital did their best to protect me from my in-laws. 4 days later, I gave birth to a healthy boy on my due date. After leaving the hospital, I went back to my parents' house instead of my in-laws. I spoke to my parents about the incident I had with my in-laws. They were furious.
How can they take our grandson's life so lightly?
"Don't go back to their home anymore."
Their hearts melted when they looked at my son, but their faces turned scary when they thought of my in-laws. I wrote a letter to the town clinic doctor who helped me after I gave birth. She replied, "You protected your baby's life with all you have. You're truly a great mother." My husband stayed with me when I was at my parents' house. He cradled the newborn baby and looked after our older daughter. He said,
I'm going to quit being a farmer and cut ties with my parents.
He rarely went back to his parents' house and started living with my parents. He also began to look for a job. My parents were happy that my husband was determined to protect our child and me, so they were also very supportive. Luckily, he found a job and we left his parents' house for good. Later, my husband told me that my in-laws started attacking that doctor's father, who was also the doctor, and saying things like,
My son and his wife moved out because of what your daughter did. They even took my grandson with them. You're gonna pay for this.
My parents' home was safe because I asked for help from my neighbors and law enforcement, so my in-laws couldn't come near our house. The doctor's father also stood with me and supported me. Because of his long experience as a doctor, he was able to bring everything under control. After my husband got promoted at work, we could finally afford our own home. We thanked my parents for their support, moved out, and started living alone. Now, my in-laws had no son to take over their farm, no daughter-in-law, and their stories seemed to have spread in their town. At first, they told their neighbors, They're just visiting their parents after giving birth. They'll be all right. But soon, their lies were busted. People started to talk about how bad their relationship with us was, and how we left them because of that. The nurse from the town clinic also told people how harshly my in-laws treated me. The rumors quickly spread because it was a small town.
Unbelievable toxic parents.
I can't imagine anyone prioritizing their farm over their grandson. My in-laws got criticized in the town, and their business also went down. So, they contacted us and tried to get us to move back, but neither my husband nor I wanted anything to do with them. As a result, they lost workers and wholesalers and had to sell their fields. Time has passed since then. My daughter is graduating from college next year, and my son is about to head off to college. I'm working at a small company. Even though we're not wealthy, I enjoy my life very much. After my husband and I stopped being farmers, we had little contact with my in-laws. Naturally, I didn't bring my children to visit them. My in-laws complained.
It's common courtesy to let us meet our grandson.
But I ignored their request and intended to do in the future because of what they did to me. My father-in-law died of a stroke 10 years ago. My mother-in-law was placed in a care facility 5 years ago after she developed Alzheimer's, but she recently passed away too. People might say I'm cruel, but I didn't feel sad when both my in-laws passed away. They not only treated my son's life lightly, but also treated him as a thing by saying, If it doesn't work out this time, just make another one. I can't be bothered to be sad for someone who treated my children with no respect and took their lives lightly. It still gives me chills when I think back on that day. If the doctor at the town clinic didn't step in, my son probably wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be so happy right now. Whenever I think about how I almost agreed with my in-laws, and I can't stop blaming myself. I feel bad that my husband couldn't see his parents, but my parents love him like he was their own son, so I don't really regret our decision. Perhaps everyone has trouble with their in-laws one way or the other. Still, some people might face similar situations as I did. In that case, I hope they prioritize their children, family, and themselves. And never listen to any nonsense.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.